Daboll's gone to the Giants. So what's up next for the Dolphins? Is it McDaniels? Is it Moore? Is it Jim Harbaugh? You know, a lot of people kind of got upset that Daboll went to the Giants. Me, I was a little bit relieved, a little bit disappointed. But there's some bad options still available, and there's some good options still available. For those who are ready to write off Jim Harbaugh, news came out he interviewed with the Vikings yesterday or like the day before. So he's still in play. And that could be the coup de grace against the negative talk about the Miami Dolphins. Now, me personally, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about Ross. I'm concerned about Greer. I like Flores. But the reality is, the truth is going to play out, and we're going to figure out where the Dolphins really stand. And to me, Jim Harbaugh was the number one guy I wanted. Really liked Jim Caldwell, but Harbaugh's younger. He played in the game, and I kind of liked him a little bit better. So to me, if we can get Jim Harbaugh, and he can come in and most likely assume full control, it's going to be a very good day. Now, the question is, will he? But let's dig into the Daboll situation first. Daboll going to the Giants was the third coach off the table. Matt Eberfluss went to the Bears. Nathaniel Hackett went to the Broncos. Daboll went to the Giants. And now Josh McDaniel is going to the Raiders. And that's a good news for us because it kind of weakens the Patriots a little bit. So if Harbaugh can come in here and take the team over and install a new kind of scouting staff, taking some of the guys out that are currently here, add some new ones in, I'm going to be very positive, especially considering McDaniels has gone over to the Raiders. And that's going to be a loss for the Patriots. So, but, if we end up with Moore, it's not going to be pretty, I don't think. It could be. It could be. You got to be fair. It could be. And Mike McDaniels, there's potential there, but there's some concerns. But we'll deal with that. So, Brian Daboll went to the Giants. A lot of people really expected him to come here. I kind of did. From all the talk, whatever you could take from it. Ross wanted Daboll. Greer preferred Vance Joseph. But Ross said he's taking a more active role in this coaching search, which is a little concerning considering his past history. But he wants offense. He wants an offensive coordinator. So it appears like that he's going to have the final say. And so Daboll was a little bit of a loss, a little bit of a hit to Ross and even to the Dolphins organization because he wasn't offered the job here, but more than likely he would have. And he made a quick decision to go to the Giants away from the Dolphins. But I would say it's a little bit of a hit in the PR department, but not necessarily in the logic department because when you really look it over, the Giants were just a smarter place for him to go. And it's not just about the organization. It's just for Daboll himself. So I want to dig into that. Now, Mara had wanted Flores. And you could see Dudley Do Wrong did a good show like 2 days ago or 3 days ago comparing the difference between Mara and Ross. And, I just happened to like stumble on it and watch it. And I thought it was really fair and I thought it was really good. There were some points that I had thought. I think so. Actually, no. A guy in the comments section told me to check it out, and I did, and it was a really good watch. So I would check it out if I were you. But you could see that Mara wanted one guy, but he brought Schoen in, and he wanted another guy, and Mara said, okay, you're the football guy, you take over. Now, Ross, he's kind of still doing the opposite. He's got Greer here, but now he's getting involved, and he's kind of like saying, this is who I want. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But Mara wanted Flores, made it very public that he wanted him to come in here. But a day after the interview, Schoen had interviewed, who did he interview? The Bills defensive coordinator. I can't remember his name right now. And then it quickly said, Daboll's my guy. And a lot of people were like, it's a real hit on the Miami Dolphins. And in some ways, like I said, it is. But when you go over the logic behind it, Schoen and Daboll worked together. And they were successful together. And they kind of know each other. And going into a partnership like this, it's critical to have that kind of relationship, to have the confidence that this guy knows you, he's going to have your back, you're going to have his back. You both have a similar direction and idea of the way you want to go. So from Schoen's standpoint, I don't think it's a knock on Flores that he didn't get the gig. And I think Daboll wisely chose the Giants because of that relationship factor. Now, Daboll has some relationship with Greer. He worked here in 2011 as the offensive coordinator when Greer was the head of college scouting department, so they had some pretty good interactions. But he was also here when Sperano got stabbed in the back by Ross. So I'm sure it wasn't a final factor of like, hey, I'm not going to stick with the Dolphins because of that, but it's kind of like in the back of your head. But the ties with Schoen were much deeper. So that really made sense. And I think that's the primary factor. TD Finn's talk, I got to watch his show. He had a whole thing about Daboll chose the Giants because of Tua. And I could see some of that aspect, but to me, the primary reason has to be the relationship between him and Schoen. Now, Jones over Tua, I got to check what TD said before I get into it. And, TD doesn't like Tua, never has. But what I keep saying over and over again is what I like about TD. He says, I got prejudice against Tua. I don't like Tua. I never said nothing good about Tua, and he's got to earn it, and I have a right to not like the guy, which is fair. I mean, it's still prejudice, but at least he's telling you he's out front. There's other guys I listen to, they have prejudice. It's like on a DL. They're like trying to make it look like it's not. And that's a little more dicey when you're trying to get information from somebody like that. And that's one of the reasons why I like TD so much, because he wears pretty much everything on his sleeve, which could be a bad thing. As you could see, even a guy like me, I've been trying to be even keeled, and then I melted down over Flores. But wearing things on your sleeve, at least you know where the guy stands. And if it's prejudice or whatever, you can kind of see that. So I gotta go. Actually, I guess I go back and check it. But the idea that Daboll would choose the Giants situation because of Tua over Jones is a little. I can kind of see it. Jones is more prototypical. He's had maybe a little more success in some ways, but other ways not really. But it's not such a stark difference where, I'm going in with Mahomes or Allen, or even I'm going to go in with, a Rodgers, or I'm going to go in with, another quarterback out there that's like that tier just below elite, Stafford or somebody in that regard. They're pretty much very similar. And so I just can't really see that, because if you're a good coach and you're going to a good team with a good GM and you guys are going to build a good core group of players, you'll find that quarterback. I mean, look what San Fran did. They've gone to one Super Bowl. They were on the verge of another Super Bowl with Jimmy G, he played really well this postseason, but he's erratic. And he's like above average, maybe, you look at Tampa. They had all the pieces. They got Brady. Look at the Rams. They had all the pieces. They got Stafford. So the idea that you're going there for Jones, if that's the case, then you're not the right guy for the job. Because if you go there and you have success, eventually, when you build the right pieces, you're going to find a quarterback. That quarterback's going to come unless you totally screw it up. So to me, Jones over Tua, it might play some factor. Some people might say, well, Daboll worked with Tua. He played against Tua. He knows what. Honestly, the Dolphins have a pretty good roster except for the offensive line and if you want to say the quarterback. But other than that, they've got a pretty good roster. They got 2 picks in 2023. They got cap space. So if you're a quality coach and you trust your GM, 2 or 3 years from now, you'll be able to find that quarterback, whether it's through, how many quarterbacks are going to be out there for trade and free agency and through the draft and whatever? Patriots found Mac at 15. So I really don't, and it's not to say, 2 is great or whatever, but to me, both these guys have huge questions. Maybe Jones a little bit less because he's got a little bit less injury history and he's a little more prototypical, but I don't know. So I think the biggest reason, if you talk a quarterback, is Tua versus Allen. Tua versus Mac. Tua and Mac are right now in the same general area. Mac's a little bit higher. He's got a higher cerebral point, but he's got a good team built around him, good offensive line. But Tua versus Allen is a big, big gulf. And you could see through these playoffs, you get teams that will have success, but the way the game's designed, when you have that elite quarterback, and Allen is truly elite, it's a very hard ocean to cross in crunch games. And I would say that because he knows Allen, Daboll knows Allen so well, and how good he is, I think that's more of a concern for him rather than saying, I don't want to play with Miami. If Miami was in the NFC East, then I think Tua would have been far less of a concern. The AFC East is very tough. You look at the quarterbacks over in the NFC East, you got Dak. He's pretty good, but he's not Allen. So I think, you got to remember when a coach comes in, he's got to make the playoffs. Once you get into the playoffs, you get a little credibility. You get to buy some time. So with the Dolphins, they're going to have a hard time making the playoffs because they got to win the division. And if they don't win the division, that means they got to get the wild card. And they're going to be battling out with the Patriots for that wild card spot. So how things play out, it could be very difficult for them to make the playoffs. Where you look at Hurts in Philly, they got a good team around him, but you're not really certain about him. Washington, you don't know what their situation is. They got a good team, but the quarterback situation's in flux too, and they don't have the capital to go get one right now. Is somebody going to come there? I don't know. And then Dak. Dak's proved he can be beaten against by a good team. San Fran beat him with much. Dak's much better than than Jimmy G. So I think if you're a coach, you got comfortability with the GM, and you got a division that's more manageable. To me, this seems like the main reason why Daboll would have gone over rather than Tua. But also, too, you got to figure when you make play calls, when you're a play caller, it's like poker. It's not just the cards you have in your hand or the players on your roster. It's your personality working through the game, making those calls. There's a lot of tells, there's a lot of bluffing, but when you know somebody's personality, and the Bills know his personality, they know what his tendencies are, they know what he likes to do. And Frazier, I could remember his name before, Frazier is a good defensive coordinator. And so that information would also add another level of difficulty where in the NFC East, it's not as well known. There's not that same familiarity. So it just seemed very smart for Daboll to go to the Giants over the Dolphins. I think there's a lot of extraneous things that are going on there, a lot of extra that kind of pulled him away. That's not just Tua or the even maybe he doesn't like, not Greer and Ross and whatever. I just think that all these other ideas, these concepts, for me, if I was the coach, would be the main pull rather than the rest of the stuff. So, me, at this stage, I'm glad he did go. I studied him all season. The guy's brilliant. He comes up with some great plays, some very interesting concepts. When he's on and the game plan's going good, he's really, really good. But there's a lack of adaptability that I saw in his game. There's a stubbornness to just want to throw. He's more fun ball. And there's a skittishness in his play calling. Sometimes I felt like he was hyper aggressive to overcompensate. There was certain plays where a run would have really done it and he just had to throw 3 times. So there's just a really mercurial way about him where you're kind of not certain what direction he's going to go. Sometimes it goes great. It's a hit or miss type thing. And I just didn't want him to go to Miami. I thought that in the long run, it probably wouldn't have panned out. So I think this is a good thing. I think some people are spinning it as a bad thing. And in some ways, it's a little bit of a PR hit. But we got to remember, we still got McDaniel, Moore, and Jim Harbaugh is in the wings. It was reported by USA Today that he had, like I said, interviewed with the Vikings. And so now there's an opportunity that he could be interviewing with us. Ross's whole spiel could have just been a PR thing where he was saying, I don't want to be the bad guy because it's his alma mater, but eventually he's going to end up here. And that's very good. But if he doesn't, with only 5 teams left and a lot of the good head coaches already taken, it's going to get a little dicey. If the Dolphins' choices are McDaniels or Moore, and Jim doesn't even come here to interview, it's going to be a hit. It could be the coup. It could be the grand PR move, the grand, chess checkmate move by Ross if he gets Jim. But if Jim doesn't even interview here, and it doesn't come here, and we end up with, say, Kellen Moore, I don't really feel good about that. Kellen Moore had that bad call at the end of the game. He's got an awesome offensive line and talent around him. When he comes here, it's going to be a lot less. And I just don't know if he's got the presence to command the room. Now, McDaniels, to me, is a very interesting prospect. He's very smart. He's funny. I think there's some really great things about him. People will say they worry about him getting a staff. I don't think that's a real problem because he's going to have the entire defensive staff here. He's going to come in, take the defensive staff. That's a whole side of the ball he doesn't have to deal with unless Flores gets a job someplace and poaches somebody. But I think we get draft picks for that and some of the key guys. And then he's going to call the plays, and I'm sure he can fill in a few holes on offense and then with some success in the second year, even fill in some more. So I'm not really concerned about him building a staff. What I am concerned with is he's the smart guy. He's the guy, he even said, he's like, listen, all players care about, they got a dream. And if you help them get to that dream, that's all they care about. But there's bumps in the road. What happens if he stumbles out of the gate? Similar to what Flores did. Then that smart guy thing doesn't really play out when you have he's a small guy, small presence. Where Flores, he had that physical presence, that rock-like presence that can help you get through that turbulent time. Now, if his brains pan out, he doesn't make those mistakes, things go smooth, then he's going to have a lot of cred, and that will help him get him through. But it's that early period where things could get shaky. And he's never called before. He's never called games before, so we don't know. We don't know what his personality is like. We know it behind the mic. We know it in the general terms of setting up the scheme, the concepts, the philosophy going to games, but we don't know what he's like calling. To me, he's a much better roll of dice than Moore. But I really am not too crazy if these are the only 2 options. So we got to wait and see. The good news is that Jim is there. But a little concerning thing is I'm not certain if he's in play. I'm not certain if they're worried about Daboll, because that whole leak that came out, that PR run of, well, we were going to try to go for Burrow, trying to trade 3 draft picks. Now, that had to come from somebody in the know. Maybe Flores tried to leak it. I don't know. But it just seems like it was being portrayed like, well, we really wanted him. We did everything to get him, but we couldn't. And it came out just as Daboll went to the Giants. So coming from Flores' camp, you'd want to hold that for a little bit and let the negative PR of Daboll going to the Giants play out. To me, it seemed like a PR move to jam the news cycle and to focus on that rather than Daboll. And to also say, hey, look, we knew what we were doing, but here we are. So I really didn't like that came out that way. It just seemed like somebody from the Dolphins organization was trying to cover things up and, do a little mojo to hide, Daboll moving on and maybe whatever else situation. So that was a little bit of a concern. But ultimately, I can infer, I can assume a lot of people are doing the same, but we can't conclude anything right now. We could say, oh, it sucked, we lost Daboll, and that he didn't want to come here. We could say, whatever, McDaniel's the best, or he's the worst. Until it all plays out, we can't really conclude anything. Because if Jim Harbaugh comes here, none of this negativity really matters. But if he doesn't, and we got to go and say Kellen Moore, and maybe even McDaniels, it could get dicey. So this is going to be a huge week for us. We got to watch to see what's going down. Try to catch up news reports. I'm sorry. This was supposed to come out 2 days ago, but I screwed up the microphone. Somehow this audio didn't play out right. It sounded like a crackerjack box. So sorry it's late on the delivery. Still a little monkey. Still a little monkey in me when it comes to the technology. So anyway, this is Curtis saying thank you for staying to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comments mean the most. Really, they mean the most. Took the weekend off a little bit from comments and everything, really. I just wanted to watch football. And especially after screwing this thing up the first time. So I'm back in the game. I'll be answering comments, but please comment. Subscribes and like. Help us with Google Overlords. Keeps us in business. Helps us with what the tech guys say, the algorithms. Google Overlords are powerful. Really like doing this. So subscribe and like. That really matters to us. So this is Curtis saying, catch you next time. Be well. And go Fins. Bookies can earn hundreds to thousands of dollars from booking action with aceperhead.com.